The biggest update for Space Engineers is here, and might I also say, the best update. So let's take a look at everything added. Let's start by looking at the new Prototech blocks added in the update. There's a lot to go over with these, so I'm probably going to do a separate video going into detail of each of them, but in this video I'll briefly go over all the ones that are added. So Prototech blocks are large, powerful endgame blocks available through encounters, which I've already done a video going over 2 of the encounters, and there's 12 of these new Prototech blocks. Let's start with the new Prototech assembler. The Prototech assembler is only capable of building the new Prototech components that are required to build and maintain Prototech blocks. We'll go over this more in my video on Prototech, but there are 2 components it can't craft, and those can only be gathered through the new encounters. There's also the Prototech refinery, which has a large grid version and a small grid version. The large grid version is effectively the same as a normal refinery, but with 4 yield modules and 4 speed modules, something that isn't currently possible. And the small grid version is slightly better than the base refinery, but obviously it's for small grid, and there currently isn't a refinery for small grid. Speaking of blocks with large and small grid variants, a block I know many of you have been waiting for is the Prototech jump drive, which as you can see has a large grid version and a small grid version. The large grid version is straight up an upgrade to the normal jump drive, boasting a larger range amongst other things, and the small grid version isn't as good as the normal jump drive, but again, we don't have a jump drive for small grid, so it's a great addition to the game. As I said earlier, we're going to do a video where we go into detail on all the Prototech blocks, so if you want to find out exactly how good the Prototech jump drive is, like this video and subscribe to the channel to see it. The new largest block in the game is the Prototech thruster, and it is absolutely massive. Just look at how big this block is, 8 blocks long and 3x3. It's still technically an ion thruster, so it works better in space than in an atmosphere, but considering how powerful it is, even in an atmosphere, it's still very effective. I have to say, visually, the Prototech gyroscope is one of my favourite blocks in this update. Just look at this thing spin. Oh my god, it's so good. Not only does it look beautiful though, the Prototech gyroscope is insanely powerful compared to its base counterpart. The small grid one is 10 times more powerful, and the large grid one is 6 times more powerful. And this makes a massive difference to the number of gyros you need on your grid. Keeping in the same vein of blocks that are massively powerful compared to their base counterparts, we have the Prototech battery, which outputs so much power it's on par with a reactor. Obviously you still need to generate that power first, but like the gyroscope, this goes a long way to reduce the number of batteries you need on your grid. And the final Prototech block in this update is the Prototech drill. And oh my, this is one big boy. Not only is it big, it mines out a larger radius compared to its size, and also it gets more materials than a normal drill, around 1.4 times more materials than the base drill. Absolutely ludicrous. What a fantastic addition to the game. Whilst that's the final Prototech block, that isn't the final block that is coming in this update. There's also this, the inset connector. As you can imagine, the inset connector is available for small and large grid, and unlike the normal connector, it has additional connection points. They all have a connection point on the back like the normal connector does, but as you can see, the large grid one has a connector on the side as well. Just the one, mind you. It doesn't have connectors on any of the other sides. You can see there's not one there, and there's not one on this side. The small grid one has a smaller connection port on all sides, and the smallest inset connector is like the large grid one. It only has connection points on 2 sides, one on the back and one on the side. If you sign up to the Space Engineers newsletter, which is where I get all those exciting teasers you always ask about, you get this, the flush cockpit. Visually, the flush cockpit is very nice. It's a great improvement over the base cockpit. Just chuck it on here. Looks much better already, look at that. However, it is worth mentioning that the flush cockpit is only available for small grids and not for large grids. Not that that makes much difference anyway. It's still absolutely beautiful. Although, it does continue the Space Engineers trend of not wanting to take any accidents while you're in this vehicle, let's put it that way. Whilst technically not free additions to the update, they are free if you already own the Signals DLC. There are 2 new truss blocks added to that DLC, and additionally 4 extra bay windows. These are to fill out the missing pieces that weren't initially in the DLC, so now you can do much more with your truss blocks and bay windows. That's all the new blocks added in this update, but there's a lot of amazing new features in this update, so let's take a look at those, shall we? So, the headline of the update are the new Planetary Encounters and the Global Encounters. Planetary encounters, as you can imagine, are found on planets. And most importantly, these new Planetary Encounters have lore in them, and I need my lore. In fact, I've had a look through all of the lore in this update, and let me tell you, I think I'm going to have to make a video on it at some point. Something, subscribe, something. Global encounters are different from planetary encounters. You will get a marker that everyone in the world can see, And then once you get there, you'll see that there'll be some sort of base, maybe a ship, maybe an asteroid. I've seen all different kinds of these things. And if you get close enough, or if you enter the base, Factorum, the new hostile faction in this update, will attack you. And Factorum have some massive warships, let me tell you. They are armed to the absolute teeth. This is the main way you get Prototech. You can get Prototech components from Planetary Encounters, but the main way to get it is through the Global Encounters, where you'll get the components and also the full blocks. To go with this, there are new world settings. So you can see here, we've got a new setting called Encounter Amount, where there's options to change the density from low to high. And let me tell you, you probably want it on high because I still struggle to find the encounters. Global encounters aren't affected by this. They seem to be on a timer, and you can set the cap for global encounters here. So by default, only one can exist at a time. You could change that to 2 if you want to have 2 existing at a time. Or if you want to turn them off, you can set it to 0. There's also down here an option to turn off planetary encounters if you don't want them on, but you want the normal encounters and global encounters on still. Global encounters aren't the only new feature in this update. There's also a ton of other interesting features as well. All action blocks now have multiple toolbars. To explain what I mean, if I come over to the sensor, go to Setup Actions, you can see that there is a 1 to 9 and a 0 at the bottom. I can switch between them, and this effectively means you can much easily trigger multiple actions from one block. So previously you'd probably have the sensor and a timer block, as a timer block had 9 slots by default that could trigger 9 actions, so you'd usually get the sensor to then trigger the timer block. But now, with the multiple toolbars, you can trigger all these actions from one block. And this affects all blocks that can trigger actions. There is a new, absolutely amazing feature called Set Value and Execute, and oh my goodness, what a fantastic addition to the game. How it works, if you go over to something that can do an action, like a button, or this even works for a hotbar, find a block like a piston, a rotor, or a hinge, and you've got a new option here, Set and Move. If you click that, you can see you can set a distance. What do you mean you can set a distance? Okay, 2 meters, let's go. You can set its velocity, we'll do 5. And now if I press my button, you'll see my piston extends 2 meters. This is going to be so useful. You guys have no idea. Mech builders are going to have a field day with this. And those of us that want our pistons to extend a certain amount, or our hinges or our rotors to do a certain specific distance, oh, this is going to be so good. This is going to be so good. There's been improvements to the AI blocks, but I'll be honest, I don't really remember how the AI works since I covered it. I'm pretty sure all the knowledge in my brain has been replaced with something. Hehe, monkey with symbols. But for those of you that love the AI, there'll be some great improvements for you to look at. For server owners, some blocks have had their PCU changed. It'd be great if they documented which blocks had their PCU changed, because I can't remember the PCU values off the top of my head. But some of them have been changed, all reduced apparently. Whilst we're in the G menu looking at the PCU of blocks, it's also worth mentioning that they've completely recategorized it on the left. So some of these categories are old, however some of these are very new and are very useful. I imagine most veteran players probably search for blocks like I do, but if you're ever struggling to find something, like you can't remember the exact name or whatever, this makes it much easier to find. They've made an interesting change to the railgun. If you go to its terminal, you can see that they've added charge efficiency down here. It's not interesting that they've added it, this was already a feature of the railgun. What's interesting is, why have they changed this now? Why would they be touching the railgun? Very interesting. Some new sounds have been added to the sound block. So if you go into the terminal for it, you see the list of sounds here, and apparently there's some new ones. This is one of them. Obviously it's supposed to be looped. Don't remember that one being there before. And I'm sure there's many more sounds for you to find in game as well. This isn't all the additions in the update, and also there was a whole bunch of bugs that were fixed as well. So I'll link the full patch notes in the description below. But now let's take a look at the exciting additions in the Contact DLC. The Contact DLC has a lot of cool stuff in it. I mean, you can just see some of it behind me. Already worth the asking price. But I should mention that I'm doing a giveaway for the Contact DLC. Not in this video, on my previous video on Global Encounters. So if you want to enter that giveaway, go watch that video, find out how to enter, and I'll announce the winners next Monday. But enough of that, let's take a look at these beautiful turrets. This is the Gatling turret Type 2. And, like I told you it all would be, it is a cosmetic variant of the Gatling turret. As you can see, there is a small grid and a large grid version, and I'll be honest, I think I prefer the small grid version. It's not that the large grid version is bad, I just don't like this weird block that's on top of it. I know it's supposed to resemble some sort of real life weapon system, but I just prefer the sleeker look of the small grid version. It sounds exactly the same as the normal Gatling turret, so no difference there. But it does look pretty cool, I won't lie. However, I am sorry to inform you that this is still 3x3. Sad times, sad times. The rocket turret Type 2 is very similar to the Gatling turret, in that it is a cosmetic upgrade, and it looks a lot better, let's be honest. I was originally a bit critical of this when I first saw it, but seeing it again now, yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? Oh, this small grid one, by the way, oh, this looks so good. This is the first time I've actually seen it, and oh my, it looks fantastic. I did show this briefly earlier in the video, but there's a new cosmetic variant of the piston called the square piston. And you're probably going to hear me say it a lot, but doesn't this just look way better than its base counterpart? What a beautiful piston. You can see how beautiful it looks as it extends. Oh, look at that. And back down. Absolutely beautiful. Those of you that follow along with the teasers will know that there's a new gate coming, but what you probably didn't anticipate was there's two new gates in this update. There is the tall gate, which looks like this. As you can see, very tall. And there is also the wide gate, which looks like this. The edge of these gates is touching the block limit, which is why there's a bit at the top and the side of these blocks. But I like these. These are pretty cool. This one feels very claustrophobic though. I'm like banging my head across it as I walk through. There's a new cosmetic variant of an antenna in this update, the parabolic antenna. It's functionally identical to the normal antenna. It just looks cooler, like most of the blocks do in the DLCs. However, enough of the cosmetic variants. Let's take a look at some new blocks. I don't really know if I'm going to give them justice in this showcase, but there's a new set of bridge blocks in this update, and oh my, they look so good. So there's variants for creating all different kinds of shapes, and then these ones at the front. So this one here is a button panel that you can assign actions on. This one here is a cockpit. Once again, continuing the keen tradition of not wanting to have an impact in this cockpit. And there's all kinds of cosmetic variants of them for building your perfect bridge to your ship. Continuing with new blocks to decorate your large grids, there's this, the captain's desk. And let's be honest, it definitely looks like something a captain of a starship, perhaps the Starship Enterprise, would sit at. I can imagine sitting at this desk to get a scolding after breaking the Prime Directive. That seems like something that would definitely happen at this desk. Although I have just noticed all the keys are normal except for these on the left. Is that YA9? CHFY? CRP? What do those stand for? Now I'm curious. Tell you what, why don't you let me know in the comments if you know what they mean. You might recognise these from the teasers, but these are new floodlight blocks. As you can see here, the lights face in different directions based on the variant. And on small grid, you have a variant that faces down like so, and also a variant that faces diagonally, which is actually really useful as we don't have something like that at the moment. And don't worry, those of you on small grid, you haven't been left out. There is also this being added to small grid, the kitchen set. But these aren't just decoration. No. Don't just assume they're decoration. So there's the coffee machine. This one is just decoration. And there's the sink, which is also just decoration. Can't twist any valves, can't get any water because, you know, water only exists in the fish tank in Space Engineers. But look at this. This is so cool. I can't explain how cool this is. This is obviously a microwave. And look, the door opens. This is so stupid. I love it. Can you get a block in there? I need to know. Come on, plushie. Get in there, I believe. I want to stick the plushie in the microwave. There's also the fridge, which opens up as well, and you can actually store stuff in the fridge, which is really useful. And also there's the oven, which makes us ask the real question, what is bro cooking? The small grid additions continue with this. This is the media player, which functions pretty much identically to the way the jukebox does. And I don't believe the jukebox is available on small grid, so this is pretty cool. So if you want to play your favourite song on small grid, now you can. Oh, here we go. Peak Space Engineers music right here. Just gotta wait for the beat to drop, guys. It's alright, give me a second. Yeah, let's go. As I love blocks that open up so much, there's also this, the medical cabinet. You can store medkits in here and stuff. But as we know, I'm just enamored by blocks that open up. It's just my favorite thing. I'm so easy to please. Just give me something with a door. And I'm like, yep, best DLC, 10 out of 10. And we also have the bunk block, which is the first bed for small grid. So yeah, a lot of small grid love coming in this update and in this DLC. But there's one more thing, the modular cargo container. This was in one of the teasers, you might remember, and it's a cargo container with 30,000 litres for storage. Obviously that's dependent on game settings, but just for comparison, that's about 2/3 of the large small grid cargo container. But, you know, it looks way better, let's be honest. I've done a video where I go in depth on the global encounters, so check that out if you're interested. And later this week, I'll be doing a video where I go over all of the Prototech blocks in high detail. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see that. Let me know what your favourite block or addition in this update is. And as always, oh wait, we've already done this bit. Ah well, cut to the supporters. A special thanks to Clone, Briarrose, Tarantula Fudge, Summit, Nicola David, Banu, Penguin, Hamish Drowner, Taurus 1834, Splurgeburger, The Whiskman, and The Wildcat. If you want to support this channel, you can become a YouTube member by clicking the join button below.